did it come to be that someone could say out loud, Hong Kong's not a part of China? What are you talking about? How is that possible? How did it come to be that we did any investing through the pension system or anywhere else into China? And how did it come to be that Jacob Stewart of the Indy Star and some rather good reporting noticed it, and we actually saw government be responsive? Tony Katz, 93 WIBC, good morning. Good to be with you. State Senator Chris Garton joins us right now from, the 45th District. He sits on Appropriations, Rules and Legislative Procedure, Joint Rules, Tax, and Fiscal Policy Committees. So this is how I know the story, sir, and I appreciate you taking the time because this involves you, because what the Indiana pension folks said was, hey, we read the legislation and Hong Kong's not part of China, and then they looked to you and you kind of gave them a frown. The story goes that Jacob Stewart discovered, that's how I know it, that the Indiana Public Retirement System was investing in Hong Kong a little over $30 million in funds. Did you know about this before the Jacob Stewart story, or is that when you were made aware of it?
Yeah, good morning, Tony. Thanks for having me. Jacob did a good job pointing this out, and once it got mentioned and brought to our attention, as you can imagine, we jumped all over and engaged leadership over at IMPERS, as well as the governor's office. And as you mentioned, they were extremely responsive, and we're appreciative for that. But I might mention, it wasn't $30 million invested. Come to find out, it was about $150 million worth of assets invested into Hong Kong.
So Jacob post the story, and I don't know the man. Post this story, and INPERS, which is the Indiana Public Retirement System, the Indiana Public Retirement System, says we read the law here, and Hong Kong is not a part of China. Now, that would mean you didn't notice when the British Empire gave it back to China in the late 90s, but neither, and a mistake, by the way. But at that moment, you get involved because you're the guy who wrote the legislation. So when you wrote the legislation, what specifically was it about? What was the impetus, and what did it say?
Sure. Well, Tony, this is a bill that couldn't be any more organic to a grassroots movement. I was actually having a conversation in 2022 with a friend of mine who was also a constituent, but who was also a public school teacher. And we were just having this casual conversation about what are the teachers' pensions funds actually invested in. And we both looked at each other and said, we have no idea. And I said, well, let me find out. And so I went on a deep dive and went down a rabbit hole. And what I found shocked me. It shocked him. And quite frankly, it shocked everybody on both sides of the aisle. Everybody I've talked to was surprised that, Indiana had a little over $1 billion invested in the Communist Chinese Party interests. And once we found that out, I'm not a guy that's going to walk away from a problem. And so we drafted legislation that said, hey, Emperors, you've got to divest from this adversary state. And, we gave them a glide path because, look, I want to be fair. Anybody that's invested in the public pension system in Indiana might have a life savings tied up in it. And so there was a fiduciary responsibility that we felt. So we created a glide path to allow Emperors to divest over a period of time. And to their credit, in their mind, at least initially, they divested, at least they claimed, 100% of Communist Chinese assets in the first year, which was ahead of schedule. Now, unbeknownst to us, they remained invested in Hong Kong, and that's when we really engaged here over the last few days after we found that out. And again, to their credit, they were extremely responsive, and it's good government.
So talking to Senator Chris Garton of the 45th District, or District 45, so INPERS says it's Hong Kong. Everyone turns to you, and you're like, this isn't going to work. And yes, they did say, you know what? You wrote the legislation. This was the intent. We now understand you, and we're going to go about this divestment. But you talk about $150 million of pension funds, and yes, it is a problem when you take a look at whether it's real estate groups like Evergrande or Country Garden, I believe it is. There have been these massive real estate entities in China that have lost billions of dollars because, well, they can't actually sustain the madness that they've created. You're right that it is a problem, but we see an equal problem when we see communist Chinese investment in the United States. Your legislation deals with how we invest the dollars of Indiana. Is there any legislation that you have discussed or you have brought up or you already have on the books that talks about communist Chinese investment in our state?
It's a great question, Tony. So one of the things we've done is we have protected, just in the last few sessions, we've actually prohibited sales of land to foreign adversaries, as well as Chinese interests around military installations. And we also beefed up securities around basically our grid and our utilities. So that's something that we're really proud of. And, look, Indiana's really been a leader in this space. Right after this legislation passed in 2023, multiple states, including Florida, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri, modeled legislation after us in Indiana. And Indiana really received national press. I mean, I did an interview with Politico and even the New York Times. Now, Tony, as you might imagine, my anti-communist China stance was maybe a little too strong for the New York Times. So apparently I'm not their cup of tea because they didn't run the story. But
oh, me too.
We're really
I got a list of people who the New York Times is not a fan of, sir.
But yeah, the legislature has really done a really nice job protecting Hoosiers from adversary states, and this is just an area that we've continued to lead on.
So in your the committees that you work in, appropriation, rules, joint rules, tax, and fiscal policy, that involves basically how we grow as a state. While I've got you here, and I will get back to some of this conversation about where we should be investing Hoosier dollars, is it your feel that Indiana is on a smart path regarding its economic future?
This administration, just like the last, has done a really good job focusing on economic development. I think the current administration is going to probably take a little different direction. I think Secretary Adams has done a nice job meeting with locals and local economic development folks and focusing on what's best for the regions. And so, I'm looking forward to continuing to collaborate with this administration and focus on growing Indiana. And we've done a really nice job of that and looking forward to continuing that.
Is there anything specifically that you've seen from the state that you think is worth touting and worth sharing?
Well, I mean, look, you can look at our growth. We've outgrown all of our contiguous states year over year. Record investments in Indiana in the past couple of years. And the thing that's really nice about that, Tony, is you can look in northern Indiana, you can look in central Indiana, and you can look all the way down to the southern part of the state by the Ohio River. And it's been record growth over the last couple of years. And so keeping that momentum going is, I think, the focus of not only the legislature, but the Brown administration. And we're excited about that collaboration.
Talking to Senator Chris Garton, State Senator Chris Garton from District 45. You and I might have a disagreement about the economic future, but I wanted to, as we were discussing this decision from the retirement group there in PERS about divesting from Hong Kong after realizing that they shouldn't be investing in Hong Kong, you say $150 million. Where should Indiana be investing? What kind of places do you think that, whether it's we're talking about how the treasurer should be doing things, Dan Elliott, whether it's in PERS, others, where should our dollars go to get the best return for Hoosiers?
Sure. Well, one thing I want to point out, so Treasurer Elliott, Comptroller Elise Nashala, were both super supportive of this bill and endorsed this bill back in 2023. Then U.S. Senator Mike Braun, now Governor Mike Braun, and U.S. Senator Todd Young also endorsed this bill. One thing I want to say about MPERS is they've done a really nice job securing returns for Hoosiers. This over $1 billion is a large number, and I've been very clear, not a single penny should ever be invested in an adversarial state. But to put that $1 billion in context of the overall portfolio, it's about 2.5% total that was invested. And so if you look at the other 97.5 or 98% of the portfolio, MPERS is invested in things that are significantly stable and that guarantee returns, consistent returns, and really shield these investments as from a fiduciary standpoint. And they've done a really nice job with that. And I think that's why the portfolio is so large, is because people have come to trust the leadership at MPERS and the consistency with which they've conducted those investments.
State Senator Chris Garton, I appreciate you taking the time. Anytime government is responsive, I think we should be noticing it. and cheering it. I'm going to disagree with you about where we see the economics going forward, but we'll save that conversation for another day. We'll get more in depth in the future, if that's all right by you. Senator Chris Garton, I appreciate you being with us and taking the time to share the story. Matt Baer has